At last, Clint Eastwood breaks his silence about one of Hollywood's most iconic and mysterious friendships, his bond with Gene Hackman. After decades of secrecy, his astonishing revelations will leave you utterly speechless. What has he been hiding? From untold on-set stories to the real reason they drifted apart, get ready for a shocking revelation. Prepare for a journey into hidden Hollywood secrets. Their first meeting on set was in 1971 during the filming of a Southern Gothic drama set in the Civil War. This was the first time they worked together on screen, yet the tension between them had begun long before the cameras started rolling. In the film, Eastwood played John McBurney, a Union soldier injured and cared for by a group of Southern women at a boarding school, though they had little screen time together, while Hackman had a smaller role as a soldier. Behind the scenes, however, things quickly grew complicated and dramatic. Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman were both renowned for their iron wills and strong opinions about acting. Eastwood, a former TV cowboy, often played the tough, quiet type. He relied on his rugged looks, personal experience, and stoic attitude to convey emotion. He preferred to keep things straightforward. In contrast, Hackman poured great intensity and emotional energy into his roles. He loved diving deep into a character's psychology, and his performances were often layered and complex. These different acting styles even led to some clashes between them. Eastwood, used to doing things his own way, didn't always appreciate Hackman's deliberate, sophisticated approach. Meanwhile, Hackman felt Eastwood's approach was too simple and lacked depth. Even though they had a tough start, both Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman fought fiercely to climb the ladder in Hollywood. Eastwood grew up in California and moved around frequently with his family. In his teens, he was interested in music. Later, he started acting. However, he didn't get noticed until he landed the role of Rowdy Yates on the TV series Rawhide. Years of playing a gruff, quiet cowboy gave him a solid foundation as an actor. By contrast, Gene Hackman came from a humble background in San Bernardino, California, and grew up in a troubled home. Eastwood's road to fame began later than Hackman's. Before fully embracing acting, he spent years doing odd jobs, such as being a clerk or delivering messages. Hackman went on to train at the famous Pasadena Playhouse and eventually started landing small roles in films. His big break came when he was cast in The French Connection, a film that made him a star almost overnight. After that, Hackman became known for bringing great depth to his characters, and his gritty, realistic style proved perfect for demanding roles. Clint Eastwood was the ultimate silent force. He didn't need words to make an impact. His big break in Rawhide taught him a valuable lesson. A great actor doesn't have to overdo it. Just like his legendary role in Dirty Harry, Eastwood became known for playing grim, gruff, and emotionally detached characters. His philosophy? Keep it cool, keep it simple, and let the action do the talking. Gene Hackman, however, was the complete opposite. He thrived on bringing depth to his roles, carefully analyzing every moment and diving deep into the psychology of his characters. For him, every movement and every word had to come from a real, raw emotion. While Eastwood stayed quiet and brooding, Hackman was loud, expressive, and full of energy. Their clashing styles created tension on set. Eastwood preferred to follow the script and keep things subtle, while Hackman constantly pushed for deeper emotional layers, challenging every scene. Their clashing styles didn't just create tension, it sparked real conflict during the filming of The Beguiled. Their working relationship exposed this struggle, as they found it nearly impossible to meet in the middle. The Beguiled wasn't just about filming a movie. It became a battleground for two powerhouse personalities. Eastwood was carving his path as a Hollywood leading man, while Hackman was still trying to find his footing in the industry. Naturally, they didn't always see eye to eye. Despite their fiery disagreements, something undeniable was happening. Hollywood was witnessing the beginning of an incredible, complicated dynamic between two legends. They might not have always gotten along, but their talent was unquestionable. Even with their creative clashes, they recognized each other's brilliance. Working on The Beguiled may have been tough, but it pushed them to grow as actors. Their early conflicts set the stage for their wildly different career paths, shaped by their ambitions and unique approaches to fame. As Eastwood and Hackman's careers evolved, their paths took them in completely different directions. Eastwood wasn't just satisfied with being in front of the camera, he wanted full creative control. By the late 1970s, he had stepped into the director's chair, kicking things off with Play Misty for Me, followed closely by Dirty Harry. This marked a major turning point. Eastwood was no longer just a leading man. He was building a reputation as a serious filmmaker. He kept pushing himself, taking on projects that challenged him both as an actor and a director. By the 1980s, he was shaping cinematic history with films like Gran Torino, The Outlaw Josie Wales, and Unforgiven. With each film, he proved he wasn't just a Hollywood action star. He was an acclaimed storyteller. Winning Academy Awards for Million Dollar Baby and Unforgiven, Eastwood cemented his place as one of the industry's most respected directors. Hackman, however, remained fully committed to acting. He thrived in diverse roles, earning nominations and accolades for playing everything from tough, cynical officers to deeply emotional mentors. While Eastwood was transforming into a powerhouse director, Hackman was solidifying his reputation as one of Hollywood's most versatile actors. Unlike Eastwood's superstar status, Hackman carried an underdog charm, bringing raw authenticity to every role. Though they handled fame in different ways, both built extraordinary, lasting legacies in Hollywood. Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman were two of Hollywood's biggest stars, but working together? That was another story. Despite their mutual respect as actors, their professional relationship was anything but smooth. Tension, disagreements, and strong personalities clashed behind the scenes, making their collaborations as intense off-screen as they were on. One of their most legendary films, Unforgiven, put their differences on full display. Eastwood, already an established actor and filmmaker, stepped into the director's chair once again. But this wasn't your typical Western. Unforgiven was a raw, gritty, and brutally realistic take on the Wild West. Eastwood played retired outlaw William Money, dragged back into a dangerous mission, while Hackman took on the role of Sheriff Little Bill Daggett, a ruthless and corrupt lawman. Their characters were on opposite sides of the law, and their on-screen chemistry was electrifying. But behind the scenes, that was a whole different battle. Eastwood was a man of few words, straightforward, focused, and all about letting actions speak louder than dialogue. Hackman, on the other hand, was methodical, deeply invested in his characters, and wasn't afraid to challenge a scene. Their opposing approaches led to inevitable tension on set. Eastwood was known for his calm, reserved nature, while Hackman was the complete opposite, expressive, outspoken, and never afraid to challenge a scene. These stark differences led to some heated moments during the filming of Unforgiven. Hackman later admitted that he didn't always see eye to eye with Eastwood, especially when it came to how certain scenes should play out. The biggest divide? Their views on character motivation? Eastwood was all about keeping things raw and natural. He wanted performances to feel effortless and grounded. Hackman, on the other hand, was always looking to push boundaries, digging deeper into his character's psyche to add layers of complexity. Despite these clashes, their respect for each other's talent never wavered. Both had worked tirelessly to earn their place among Hollywood's elite. Eastwood had already cemented himself as an action icon and director, while Hackman had secured Academy Awards with his intense, unforgettable performances. Yet, their contrasting styles created an undeniable tension. Eastwood preferred control and precision, while Hackman wanted to explore every emotional nuance, sometimes pushing a scene beyond what Eastwood had envisioned. Any deviation from Eastwood's directing style? That was bound to cause friction. One moment from The Unforgiven set perfectly captures the tension between Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman. During a crucial high-stakes scene, Hackman was supposed to deliver his lines exactly as written. But always one to add depth and complexity to his characters, Hackman started improvising, completely shifting the tone of the moment. Eastwood, ever the perfectionist, wasn't having it. He immediately called cut, and firmly but calmly told Hackman to stick to the script. Hackman, however, wasn't on board with this rigid approach. This wasn't just about one scene, it was about two clashing philosophies. Eastwood believed in discipline, simplicity, and doing things his way, both on and off set. He was a no-nonsense filmmaker who valued precision. Hackman, on the other hand, embraced spontaneity, always searching for fresh angles and deeper emotional layers. Their age difference only fueled the tension. Eastwood, in his early 60s, had already made his mark as a director, while Hackman, in his late 50s, was still refining his craft. Two powerhouse actors, two strong perspectives. Was this creative clash pushing them toward greatness, or was it tearing them apart? One thing was certain: neither was willing to back down. After decades of working together, and apart, Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman's careers took dramatically different turns. Their once close collaboration faded into complete silence, with neither publicly acknowledging the other for years. What happened? Their relationship, once filled with intensity and creative clashes, cooled to the point where it seemed they had simply drifted apart. But the real reasons behind their distance were far more complex. For Hackman, the decision to leave Hollywood sent shockwaves through the industry. After decades of unforgettable performances in films like The French Connection, The Conversation, and Unforgiven, he made the shocking choice to walk away from the spotlight. By the early 2000s, Hackman, now in his 70s, wasn't necessarily done with acting, but he was done with the pressure and celebrity that came with it. Instead of a grand farewell, he simply vanished, retreating into a quiet, private life away from Hollywood's relentless glare. Fans were left wondering, why did one of the most intense and captivating actors of his era disappear so suddenly? Some believed he had grown tired of the industry's demands, while others speculated he was frustrated with the limited roles available to aging actors. Whatever the case, his absence left a void in Hollywood. While Gene Hackman vanished from Hollywood, Clint Eastwood's career only soared higher. He didn't just continue acting, he cemented himself as one of the most powerful figures in the industry. Producing, directing, and starring in major films, Eastwood embraced the role of a visionary filmmaker, taking on bold and ambitious projects like Million Dollar Baby, Gran Torino, and American Sniper. Unlike Hackman, who had walked away from the business, Eastwood thrived in the ever-changing world of cinema, proving that his talents extended far beyond his legendary tough guy roles. As the years passed, Hackman faded from public memory, while Eastwood's dominance only grew stronger. His films continued to rack up awards and accolades, securing his place as a Hollywood icon. But behind all the success, did he ever feel the absence of his old collaborator? While Eastwood rarely spoke about Hackman, it's hard to ignore the silence between them. The retirement of his longtime co-star served as a stark reminder of how quickly Hollywood can move on, even from its greatest talents. Eastwood's legacy continued to thrive, but in rare moments he hinted that the years of distance from Hackman weren't as easy to ignore as they seemed. During this time, Eastwood and Hackman's relationship seemed to grow colder. For years, they never appeared at public events together, never acknowledged each other's successes, and seemed to have completely moved on. But was there lingering resentment, or had they simply drifted apart? Rather than any explosive feud, their separation felt more like a quiet, unspoken agreement, two Hollywood legends walking different paths. Their past on-set clashes might have played a role, as their egos and creative differences had occasionally put them at odds. While Eastwood continued building his directing empire, Hackman vanished from the spotlight, making their distance even more apparent. Strangely enough, neither ever made an effort to publicly address their relationship. Eastwood, frequently asked about Hackman in interviews, always kept his answers vague, never offering much insight into their history. Years passed, and both men seemed content to let the past stay buried. But fans couldn't help but wonder, were they still on good terms, or had their tension lingered for decades? With neither side ever fully explaining the distance, the truth remained a mystery, leaving Hollywood and the world wondering what really happened between them. The big reveal. As Clint Eastwood entered the later years of his career, he began to reflect on his past, especially his relationships with fellow actors. And finally, after years of silence, he started to open up about Gene Hackman. In rare interviews, Eastwood revealed the truth about their time working together, admitting that while their personalities often clashed, he never stopped respecting Hackman's immense talent. Despite their differences, there was always an unspoken understanding between them, two masters of their craft pushing each other to their limits. Eastwood acknowledged that Hackman's acting style was vastly different from his own, but that didn't make it any less brilliant. In fact, he credited their work on Unforgiven as one of the greatest highlights of his career. He admitted that Hackman's performance as the ruthless Sheriff Little Bill wasn't just great, it elevated the entire movie. But as Eastwood reflected, there was also regret. The years of silence between them weren't just about professional distance. They had never really spent time together as friends. He wondered what might have been different had they made more effort to stay in touch. Hackman's quiet exit from Hollywood was a stark reminder that fame doesn't last forever, and while Eastwood kept thriving, he respected Hackman's decision to walk away on his own terms. Hollywood felt a massive void when Gene Hackman retired. It wasn't just about losing a talented actor. It was about losing a performer who brought a rare authenticity to every role he played. Whether he was portraying a morally complex anti-hero or a downright villain, Hackman had a way of making every character feel real, layered, and unforgettable. He never shied away from difficult roles, and that fearlessness cemented him as one of the most respected actors of his generation. With Hackman gone, his absence only made Eastwood's legacy stand out even more. While Eastwood continued dominating the industry, Hackman's retirement was a stark contrast, a man who chose to step away from the limelight at the height of his career. Many missed seeing him on the big screen, but his departure was a statement in itself. He wanted to leave on his own terms, away from Hollywood's pressures, and he did just that. As Eastwood reflects on his old friend and longtime co-star, one thing is undeniable: their bond, no matter how complicated, remains legendary.